Hello and welcome to today's session. Today we are saying goodbye to the inner critic, the voice that doubts, judges, and holds us back. Together we will replace that negativity with kindness, self beliefs, and empowerment. Listen carefully and repeat after me. Today I program myself to manage and quiet my inner critic. The voice in my mind that judges, criticizes, and questions my ability has been with me for a long time. I recognize that this inner critic is not a true reflection of who I am, but rather a manifestation of fear, self doubt, and all patterns of thinking. It often tries to protect me from failure or disappointment, but in doing so, it holds me back from my full potential. Today, I choose to rewrite the script. I program myself to challenge the inner critic, replacing its negative and limiting voice with one of encouragement, support, and self compassion. I begin by acknowledging the presence of my inner critic. It might show up when I attempt something new, face a challenge, or make a mistake. The voice can be harsh and unforgiving, pointing out my flaws, comparing me to others, or telling me I am not good enough. But today, I remind myself that this voice is not the truth. It's a distortion fueled by fear and insecurity. I separate myself from this inner critic and recognize that it's just one part of me, not my entire identity. As I program myself to manage the inner critic, I also understand its origins. This critical voice may have been shaped by past experiences, social expectations, or the words of others. It developed as a defense mechanism, attempting to shield me from harm or rejection. But I no longer need this protection in the same way. Today, I'm strong enough to move forward without the need for constant self criticism. I'm ready to trust myself and my abilities, knowing that I'm capable of handling whatever comes my way. One of the most powerful tools I have in managing the inner critic is awareness. Whenever I notice that critical voice surfacing, I pause and acknowledge it. I don't try to push it away or ignore it, but I also don't allow it to take over. I observe the thoughts it brings up without judgment, recognizing that they are just thoughts, not facts. This simple act of mindfulness helps me create distance between myself and the critic, allowing me to respond with intention rather than react out of habit. Once I become aware of my inner critic, I challenge it. I ask myself, is these thoughts really true? Is this evidence to support this criticism, or is it based on fear? I program myself to question the validity of the critic's words. Often I find that the critical thoughts are exaggerated, unrealistic, or based on old patterns that no longer serve me. By challenging the critic, I take away its power and replace it with a more balanced and compassionate perspective. Today, I also program myself to speak kindly to myself. Instead of allowing the inner critic to dominate my thoughts, I consciously choose to be my own biggest supporter. When I make a mistake, instead of berating myself, I offer words and encouragement. It's okay. Everyone makes mistakes. You are learning and growing. When I face a challenge, instead of doubting my abilities, I remind myself, you are capable and you have overcome challenges before. You can do this. I replace the negative self talk with affirmations that uplift and empower me. In managing the inner critic, I also practice self compassion. I understand that being human means being imperfect, and that's okay. I no longer expect myself to be flawless or to have all the answers. Instead, I give myself permission to be a work in progress. I treat myself with the same kindness and understanding that I would offer to a friend. I know that self compassion is key to silencing the inner critic and creating a healthier, more supportive relationship with myself. I also visualize the inner critic as a character outside of myself. Sometimes this helps me see its absurdity more clearly. Perhaps I imagine it as a cartoonish figure with exaggerated features, constantly complaining or pointing out flaws. This visualization helps me distance myself from the critic and reminds me that its words are not reflective of my true worth. By externalizing the critic, I can view it with a sense of humor and lightness, taking away its power to hurt me. As I manage this inner critic, I also focus on cultivating a growth mindset. I program myself to see challenges, mistakes, and setbacks not as failures, but as opportunities for growth. Instead of criticizing myself for not being perfect, I celebrate my efforts and progress. I remind myself that every step forward, no matter how small, is a step toward success. By shifting my perspective from judgment to growth, I weaken the influence of the inner critic and strengthen my confidence. Throughout the day, remain mindful of my thoughts and how I respond to them. When the inner critic arises, I acknowledge it, challenge it, and replace it with a more supportive voice. I remind myself that I am worthy of kindness, patience, and understanding, especially for myself. By the end of the day, I feel more empowered, knowing that I can manage the inner critic and create a more positive inner dialogue. In coming to continuing this practice each day, the inner critic may not disappear overnight, but with constant effort, I know I can change the way I relate to it. I choose to nurture my inner voice with love, encouragement, and compassion, allowing myself the freedom to grow, learn, and thrive without the burden of harsh self judgment. I trust in my journey and in my ability to become the best version of myself step by step with kindness at the core. Mantra for day 10: Managing the Inner Critic. I release the power of my inner critic. I challenge its words and replace them with kindness, compassion, and support. I'm more than my mistakes or imperfections. I'm worthy of love and understanding. Each day, I grow stronger in managing the critical voice, choosing to speak to myself with patience and encouragement. I trust in my journey and my ability to thrive. Thank you for today and have a greatest day. Bye bye.